What are the thoughts on your mind as we wake up today?
Just pure devastation. It's 24 hours later. Pain hasn't subsided. The sorrow hasn't subsided. To know Kobe, to know what kind of life he planned on having, to know that he's just 41 years of age, so brilliant, so accomplished in so many different things, but still as tenacious, as committed as ever to build a second life for himself per se. Contributing to the sport of women's basketball the way that he had planned to, just raving about his daughter at every turn. He came up to me, came up to Jay-Z and a few others and was like, wait until you see my daughter play. She is something special. He was so proud of her. And to know that, he's gone at age 41, it's just devastating. It's incredibly sad. And then on top of that, to know that she was with him at age 13 years of age. And all of us up here are fathers, and you can just imagine, unfortunately, what the final moments were like. And, knowing him, he probably grabbed her in his arms and said, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Knowing that it wasn't. It's just a devastating thing to imagine. And, speaking to Magic, yesterday, Magic couldn't stop crying. Speaking to Shaq, Shaq was in tears. He was devastated. And, so many others around the NBA community, virtually speechless. And, last time I saw him was New Year's Eve. We were partying together in Bel Air, and he was looking forward to a very, very prosperous 2020. He was sitting up there and congratulating me and, talking about all the fellas up here and beyond and talking about how proud he was of everybody. And then he was like, 1 + 1 = 1 billion. I said, what are you talking about? He said, that's what we go for. That's what we shoot for. It's not just about money. He wasn't speaking about money. He was just speaking metaphorically like, excuse me, you go for it all. You exhaust every means, every measure imaginable to acquire the aspirations that you have. He was relentless in that regard. That to him was what life was all about, a pursuit of excellence. And to see him gone at age 41 when he had so much more to offer the world, the only word that comes to my mind is devastation.
What part of his legacy is based around that in your mind?
Well, his whole thing was that, often when we talked, he would reflect on when he came into the league, and particularly the first 2 years, because we look at the illustrious career with the 36,000 plus points and, third on the all-time scoring list before LeBron James passed him the other day. And we almost forget that the first couple of years of his NBA career were incredibly, incredibly tough. Trying to, just adjust to the NBA life, coming off the bench, not even starting, certainly not enjoying the level of success that he ultimately would end up enjoying over the vast majority of the next 18 years or so. And he remembered the people that maligned him. He remembered the people that tried to question what he was going to be able to do, whether or not he'd have the commitment to do it, et cetera. And he just talked about being young and impressionable at a particular moment in time. And he was incredibly fortunate because the first 8 years of his life, obviously, he grew up in Italy, and before he comes to Pennsylvania, stars at Lower Merion as an All-American. And his mentality was, I was very blessed and fortunate to have the mentality that I have, but understand that most kids do not. And the kind of things that you can do can really, really dissuade and create a roadblock and an object in their mind and in their hearts that could curtail them from prospering and ultimately reaching their goals. And we need to be incredibly careful and guarded when it comes to our youth and be about the business of uplifting them instead of knocking them down. But in the process of uplifting them, always remind them that you're going to have to work to get it. Never sit up there and give the impression that it's okay to be lackadaisical and laissez-faire about things and go about life in cruise control. If you want something bad enough, you got to put your foot to the pedal and really, really push it down and go for it. And as long as you make sure that you send that message to the youth while uplifting them in the process, they will prosper and they won't let you down. And that was his firm belief.
Stephen, you and I have both covered the sport and all sports for a long time. And I wonder if you found this as well. And it's so interesting about him. Most of the great athletes that I've had the opportunity to interview, whether it be on television or with Kobe, I was frequently in events, corporate events and things like that he would have me come and interview him in those places. Most former athletes love talking about their playing career. They love talking about their exploits. They love talking about their past. Kobe Bryant never wanted to talk about that. Kobe was always on to the next thing. He genuinely, the last interview I did with him, which is for this show, I asked him about the notion that people will compare him to Michael, people will compare him to LeBron. And he answered, and he's the only one who I believed when he said it. He really doesn't care about his place in the game's history. All he really was concerned about was the next challenge, the next mountain to climb. It was very unique amongst great athletes to have that perspective.
He was very big about that because he thought that he was more than just a basketball player. I mean, you got to remember something. We're walking around here. This guy was trilingual, for crying out loud, at a minimum. Clearly, he spoke fluent Italian, Spanish, and English. He joked with me about being able to speak German, and I laughed, and then he looked at me and said, "You really think I'm playing, don't you?" I'm not playing, you know. And so, you know, we knew his brilliance. He talked about, you know, when he won the Academy Award, he barely mentioned it. He said, on to the next chapter, new challenges. This is what you live for. It's about inspiring other people, but it's also about uplifting yourself and inspiring yourself. He had plotted and planned his exit from the game of basketball. It was not a struggle for him to move beyond his playing days. It was all set. He knew exactly what he was going to do, and he went about the business of doing it.
You know, today is obviously an extraordinarily sad day, and all of us feel sad